Welcome to the Elite Level Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Elaine, and this is the podcast where we explore how elite level performers think, act, and operate. As always, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'd really appreciate if you could take a moment to hit that like button, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're listening on any of the podcasting platforms, if you could take a moment to leave us a 5-star review, that would be greatly appreciated. Lastly, we recently released the Elite Level newsletter. You can get access to that via elitelevel.co. That's elitelevel.co to get a weekly update from the brightest minds in software sales. Now, with all of that said, we've got an absolutely fantastic guest here today. Eduardo, it's great to see you.
Good to see you, Alex. Good to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for coming on. So, Eduardo, for those out there who don't know much about you, yourself, and your background, give us a bit of a rundown of your career highlights.
Yeah, of course. So actually started my career nothing related to tech at all, or kind of sales either. I used to teach karate. That's how I paid for school. I used to have a dojo back in the day. There's where I got my chops actually selling memberships, now that I actually know about it. But back then I had no idea. Then I moved to New York. I really wanted to be back in the city. I'm originally Venezuelan, so and grew up in Caracas, which is a big city. So I was kind of bored living in Florida. So I moved to New York, started working for the ZocDoc, and there I got my first, taste of tech sales, where I was an SDR to begin with, typical 100 calls a day, cold calling doctors and, jumping gatekeepers left and right. I did that for actually 3 months. I wanted to get out of it as quickly as possible. Then I became a full cycle rep. Then I went to account management for a little while. Then I took a few people, started a startup, ran that for about 3 years. It was an app where you can run a restaurant tab on your phone. You can probably see a bunch of them now, but at that time it was a little bit early. And then, the whole team ended up going to another startup. It was a Y Combinator startup. So all my go-to-market team went there, and there I spent enough time to vest and move to Monday, where I am right now. For there, I managed their post-sales team. So anything revenue carrying account managers, and the other half was implementation people, for about 20 people at the time. And then I moved to Monday. I actually got introduced to Monday by needing to find a tool to manage my team at the time. Every sales team uses something, similar to Salesforce. We had Salesforce at the time, but all my reporting needed to be a little bit more complex because I had projects tied together with my pipeline. So I got introduced to Monday at the time and loved the product. We were called the Pulse back then. I started getting to know the Monday team. Long story short, I was about to move to San Francisco to work for venture capital. I was super excited about it. Got to meet the Monday team and fell in love with the people. Like, nobody had fancy titles, but everybody was sharp as hell. That time we were a Series C company, I believe. And that's been 4 years, man. I still love Monday. An IPO later and a bunch of teams later, I'm still in it, so still love it. I manage our solutions engineering team for North America. I've been doing that for about 2 years. I'm still loving it, man.
That's incredible. I love the story. I can't wait to unpack everything from starting out hating being an SDR all the way through to loving Monday.com and having a daily smile on your face. So I do want to start with the earlier stages there, Eduardo, because it really stood out in my mind where you said, I started as an SDR, I hated it. Right. I've got to ask the question, why did you hate it? I mean, why did you start it and why did you end up hating it?
Yeah, I mean, I love the sales part of it, but I was a bit frustrated of not taking it through all the way to what I wanted to get to. Always been, I feel like I've been. You can divide sales reps into two camps, in my opinion. One would be a relationship builder first, and the other one would be problem solving first. I see myself a little bit more on the second camp. Keep in mind, a good sales rep needs to do both, but you kind of lean one way or another. And when it came to SDRs, like I found myself trying to solve problems about how to get people to take more meetings versus more people buying, right? So essentially my whole purpose as soon as I started taking calls was, how do I do this as effectively as possible so I don't have to do this anymore, right? So the typical model was, learn the script, this is how you're doing, this is your territory, go for it. You need to do 100 calls a day, 3 meetings a day minimum. The top reps were doing, 5 meetings, 6 meetings a day on average. So I was like, well, I want to be a top SDR, not to be an SDR forever, but to go into full sales cycle as soon as possible. So that's what I did. I started doing things that maybe, the company wasn't liking at the time. Like I started doing, scraping emails around the internet, making email lists, sending out. So I was my own marketing for a little bit. Because what I believe was hardest for me was picking up the phone and not having directly a decision maker. Is trying to get through the gatekeeper by being honest. It's very hard. So in my experience, what I try to do is how do I get more people? How do I contact more people to find the diamonds in the rough versus trying to bulldoze over everybody that I got on the phone at that time. And keep in mind, ZocDoc is for some context, they are a marketplace of doctors and dentists and healthcare practitioners in general. It's very similar to Expedia. You can go in, find whatever you want, book an appointment, and go see the doctor. And ZocDoc is an amazing tool. Like NPS for clients is through the roof. But obviously, the experience with the providers is that we need you to get on the platform so people can book you. So again, like for me, SDR was, I needed to learn it. I need to perfect it because obviously at a full cycle, that's a very big part of your role. But to me, it was, how do I get to full cycle less than how am I the best SDR in the world just for the sake of being the best SDR in the world?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm fascinated always by people's stories as being an SDR because the consistent thing I hear is that it's tough. The second strand, though, is that the learnings that can often come from that role can set you up for a sustainable, long-term, enduring career. And I know back when we called it really a BDR back when I was doing it. The lessons that I've taken from that role are still a core tenet but behind my success today, right? The persistence, the being able to fight back from rejection, continuing to drive forward. I'd love for you to summarize your own lessons from that experience back then, Eduardo.
Yeah, of course. I think nobody stops being an SDR. That's the one thing that I learned after, not necessarily after I got promoted, but today. You are an SDR always. That's the one thing that I didn't know at the time. And the reason is when you think about an SDR, like what they need to do is making sure that you understand the funnel top to bottom. Because even though you're responsible for the top part of the funnel, you're generating your pipeline for the future. And that's something that never stops. It doesn't matter, even if you're an inbound team, that grit and that like not letting go of what's good never stops. In fact, particularly at Monday, we're very lucky that we have a very big inbound funnel, right? So we get leads assigned to us today. We don't have to scrub leads from random lists, but the same behaviors are what make the top reps is, taking the extra time to do a direct call, taking the extra time to look at different stakeholders within the company that might relate to each other, understanding that there is context within the company that you're talking to, regardless whether it's inbound or outbound. Can't even imagine how many times I speak with, especially when I'm helping friends that are in other companies that are trying to build their new teams. The first thing that I see is that people don't have context to the customers they're talking to. One question that people never ask themselves is, what is your customer, let's say it's B2B environment, what does your customer do? Like, how do they make money? If you don't even know how they make money, good luck trying to gain the help. So get the pain that the customer has. So in the SDR world, like you have to think a lot about what is it you're going to be talking about with a customer to gain their interest, to take a meeting, period. And that research of gaining context of the customer, who you're talking to, is something that I take on to today. Like it doesn't stop. And I do it even for, executive meetings with, big banks in America to, the smaller use cases for a small team in a random company, So.
Yeah, I think the research part, it's really important. It comes under planning and preparation ultimately in many regards. And You know the saying, you fail to plan, then you plan to fail, is something that I was once taught early in my career. So let's fast forward slightly here now, Eduardo, because your background is really fascinating because of this blend of being in sales roles and then operator roles, in essence, having your own things going on. And then we're going to come on to your time at Monday.com, because there's a lot of fascinating parts about that. But talk to us about your time as a full cycle rep and that period of time for you. What was it like when you actually took the first step post being an SDR? Because you've been very clear that really what you wanted was to be full cycle.
Yeah, of course. I mean, at the time that I got to be full cycle, they gave me a territory that was challenging to say the least. It's called Allentown, PA. Probably for you guys in the UK, I have no idea where it is. That's the point. There were not that many computers in that territory, just to be frank. It's a big Amish town in Pennsylvania here. So I had to not only do what I did on the SDRs, I had to do a 10x because I didn't have that many opportunities to work with. So my experience there was just to get started. It was to make sure that I have enough pipeline to survive, right? To survive my ramp up. And once I got those opportunities, I won't let go. So there's two aspects when it comes to full cycle that I think were important for me to understand at the beginning. One of them is that, deals can close immediately or it can take a long time, and you need to prioritize that. A lot of the times when you don't have that many deals up, you lose the superpower of saying no and taking a bad deal. Like, you want to be able to say no if the deal is not good. So that was number one thing that I needed to focus on, is building enough pipeline so that I gained that superpower of not bending towards a request that was unreasonable. Because otherwise you're not able to get the deals that you want, right? The larger deal sizes, the large the amounts that I needed, because I didn't have enough quantity at the time to hit goals if I didn't optimize for getting the largest deals that I could. So I survived ramp, of course. The Zaktak days, there was a lot of attrition on our team. It was a typical culture of, sink or swim in the company. So I survived that. Then I moved to new markets, it was as difficult, but there was nothing more hilarious than calling Hawaii and saying, "Aloha, this is Eddie. I'm looking for Dr. Blah." I love that part. And in that area, same skill set, right? I want to make sure that I had enough pipeline so that I can have enough leverage to speak with people and not take, a deal out of desperation, or not offering discounts out of desperation. It comes through when you're passionate already. That's part of it. But when you have passionate and confident, it takes you to a different level. So that's where I learned, like, being full cycle for the first time. Now, when I moved to Monday, actually there was no management at Monday when I started in the US. I was employee number 6, I think, in the US. We were about under 100 employees at Monday at the time. So I took an IC role. I loved Monday. Like, the product made a lot of sense for me. When I saw the database, I was like, I can sell this in my sleep. Let's go. It was the same scenario, right? It's make sure you have enough grid to build enough pipeline so that you can control your destiny. I'm a big fan of writing down, like, who are going to be the people that are going to sign up for me this month. So I had a list like Arya Stark, the Arya Stark list from Game of Thrones. And then I would write my 10 people that I wanted to sign up this month. And my goal was to, go down the list, and I got everybody that I wanted from all the opportunities. But that, for me to have that list, I need to have a lot of more things behind me. So anyway.
Makes a ton of sense. Eduardo, some of the things that stood out for me in what you just described is you speak about grit, you speak about confidence, you infer tenacity. Some of these really important traits which have clearly helped you to unlock a great career. How much of that is just in Eduardo? How much of that is just innate in you as a person versus how much of that did you train, right? Did you go out there and actively say, I need to become exceptional in these areas and I'm going to seek that out. I'm going to find a way to get better. Just unpack that for us.
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of it is myself, but I also can tell that by hiring teams. So my job since I've been on Monday has been to create teams. So after I became IC and started managing, I started to hire for teams like the one I had, and then other teams later. And that's something that you find in people, like that grit, like that background that had some adversity, and you've seen them jump over adversity, is something that I don't necessarily think it's in me because I was born that way, but it's definitely my experiences that have made me have that skill set behind me. I mean, being an immigrant, of course, to the States makes a difference. Having a big accent and calling Allentown was a big difference. I've told this, of course, to my friends, but and people at ZocDoc, but when I got into Allentown, I changed my name to Edward Harrison, and I spoke very slowly, and I try to keep things, very slow. So my accent didn't show up that much. Harrison is my wife's maiden name. Anyway, I wouldn't just pick a random name for the sake of it, but anyway, like you have to mold yourself into the situations you're in, but it comes from having an experience, having to go through adversity. Like I think in particular, grit is something that comes from experience, not trained specifically, unless you're in the military where it's trained and instilled into you in an artificial way. So you get ready for much harder things than what I do in the day-to-day. But in general, like I think that's something that came before I even started sales. But the passion is something that comes from the company you're with and the people you're surrounded with, and that comes across anywhere. So if you have it's not only having a good product, but if you can rally behind a company that has good beliefs, good values, and the product is something that you resonate with, then that passion comes as well. But there's a lot of it that it's baked into us because of our backgrounds,
Yeah, I completely agree. I often talk to a lot of those characteristics as the unteachable characteristics, but I say that what you can do is ignite or help someone unlock those characteristics in themselves. Everyone's got a lot of this tucked up away inside them, right? Some people have it on show 24/7, and others it's buried. And it just needs someone with a shovel to just help them dig a little bit deeper to realize it. So I just think it's great how that's been so central to your story so far. I want to talk now about your run at Monday.com. This seems to be where you spent probably the majority of time of your career. I want to pre-frame this with, I've become a user of Monday.com. I've been using the platform for a period of time now, enjoying the experience, actually. I always had access to it. I hadn't probably spent as much time in it as I should have, but certainly in the run-up to having this conversation, spent more and more time and find how helpful it's been in terms of driving more productivity for me as a sales leader, which has been really great. The thing I'd love to understand from you, though, is that when you joined the business, you were one of the first employees. So as with probably almost any tech company, at the beginning, you can have a great product, but it's early, right? It's going to need improvement. It's going to need to evolve. So what did you see in the company? What did you see in the technology that gave you the conviction in the journey that could be ahead?
There's two parts. In a way, you have to put yourself the hat of, the coworker and the hat of the investor to kind of gauge that in. The coworker part, how I mentioned earlier, the people that I got to meet at Monday were just incredible. They were, and keep in mind, like I've worked with incredible people before, so it's not like that was the case. But at the time where I got introduced to Monday, I was interviewing to do exactly the same job I had before, but for a big VC firm that acquired a bunch of companies and they wanted to start a go-to-market team. So all the people that were interviewing were, ex-head of whatever from, top tier tech company in the Valley. And all my interviews were, how in San Francisco, there's a lot of steep hills, and they'll do walk-in talks, walk-in interviews. And then I will walk up, they were asking the questions and I was gassed out answering everything. And every time we will go downhill, they will then answer the questions. So that was the experience I had in Silicon Valley at that specific time. Then I met the Monday people. And nobody had a fancy title. Nobody had like anything other than, hey, we want to build this massive thing. We believe we're going to be the next Microsoft. We believe we're going to be the next Google. And that was infectious. So, because at the end of the day, like the team itself needs to pivot a gazillion times before you find something good. And we always talk about this in the 0 to 1 context. Like, how do we find product market fit to get into the rocket? In fact, that's not how it works. Like, it happens all the time. There's a product market fit for a specific thing, and then you do it again and again and again and again. And there's no escape velocity that's just natural. Like, there's the people changing and getting new challenges in front of them and pivoting and learning something new. So the people was the number one thing for me to kind of gauge this. Keep in mind, I'm also not related at all to Israel Tech until I joined Monday. So it was also my first time getting exposed to the culture, and I love the directness of them. I love the how smart they are and how much tech is involved in their culture, particularly in Tel Aviv. So I love that. Then on the business side, and more on the product side, keep in mind, at that point, we were a task manager. Like, we were very similar to Asana at that point. In fact, when I was trying to buy a tool for my team, I looked at Asana and Monday at that time, because they could both do similar things. But what made me kind of open my mind around Monday and why it could be a very big thing was their building block concept. So essentially, let's say, right now you're experiencing it because you're using Monday. A lot of the times when people want to manage work, they think about project management. But in reality, most of us are not project managers, not by training nor by function. So let's pretend that you and I have, let's say, those tiny houses from Instagram that are on wheels that got super famous a couple of years ago.
I think I've seen them.
They're like little houses that they build on trailers, and that was a big thing a couple of years ago. So let's pretend you and I have a company that does that. You're an architect. I'm a head builder. Great. You're gonna give me a task list. You're gonna say, hey, you're gonna do first the foundation, then you're gonna do the walls. You're gonna do blah blah blah. For me to go in and click check on that specific task, I need to go and find out, do I have trailers already? If I don't, I'm not going to put my credit card and purchase it. I'm going to tell procurement, hey, I need to get a trailer for this houses. And I'm not doing one house, I'm doing 20 houses. So, do we have inventory? If not, great, then we purchase something. That procurement team needs to have a vendor CRM. And in that vendor CRM, you might have previous quotes you had in the past, so you can purchase something cheaper, et cetera. And then once they decide to purchase, then it goes to accounts payable. So all these things happen outside of the project management side of things. Now, even at that time, I saw that Monday was not focusing on making the most, to the T project management tool based on PMI or PMBOK methodology. They were trying to make the building blocks for you to manage anything, which means I can manage the project with the timelines and the Gantt charts and whatever, but then I can also manage all the things that happen today and emails and spreadsheets. Like that's a universal language in anything from like you and I using it for our own projects or our businesses, or Bank of America in their day-to-day. It's insane. So that's when it opened my eyes. And of course, as a salesperson, I looked into our database called Big Brain. I looked at Big Brain and I saw all the trials that come out every day. And not only you can see the trials, but you can also see how many people are in those trials. It's still a mine of opportunity as a salesperson. And keep in mind, coming from having my own startup and having to scrape those leads myself, or even before that at ZocDoc, having to go on Yelp and find who was the chiropractor in whatever city. To me, it was a dream. So it was an easy step for me to say Monday special. Now, I did not know that we'll be who we are right now. I had no idea we are going to go public at the time that I joined, but it was definitely a good ride ahead at that point.
I'm sure you certainly wouldn't complain, right? It's been an incredible growth story There's no doubt about that. And through everything that you just spoke about there, Eduardo, the little houses and everything in between, the core of what I really took away, the essence, is just the importance of exceptionally talented people and great people, right? That seemed to be so core to, one, you having a great experience, but two, you being able to buy into the vision of the company. Because without having really talented people that want to run at something that's purposeful and invigorating and could set the world alight in a certain capacity, nothing would have really happened. So that was almost my big takeaway in that regard. One thing I'd love you to do, Eduardo, is to actually bring your role to life a little bit more. We got to speak off camera a little bit more about what it is that you've been doing over recent years. And it's fascinating, actually, the type of role that you're now playing for the business. And I think it's something that is important for listeners to think about, being problem solvers in a way within their company. So please just bring your role to life in the last few years.
Yeah, of course. It actually started probably like 2 months into joining Monday when I got this question for the first time, which was our head of sales, Yoni Osharov. He asked me, Eduardo, like, what do you want to do? You're obviously doing well. You're already on top of the board, just started. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, listen, Yoni, like, my role does not exist today. I'm not going to ask for it. Don't worry about me. I'll do me. I'll keep putting my numbers, and whenever something happens, we'll find something to do. Now, that at the time was a bad thing to say, because what he was expecting is for me to say, hey, I want to be the next manager of this team. I'll take whatever. But that was me, and that's always the way I've been thinking about it. So when the time came, and after my first year, I did a little bit less than a year before I got my team, my first team. My role has been to hire new team members, start a new team, train them, making sure that they know the Monday way and they know like how to navigate our sales process, which is, it's a little bit unique because we don't have one singular ICP, or we don't have like 3 ICP, we have hundreds, because anybody can use Monday and they can use it for very different things. So it's very important for us to understand a lot of different workflows to be effective at Monday. So our VP of sales, Jameson at the time, he's still head of sales of North America, of course. He told me, hey, you did it well with your first team. My first team became a top team at the time. It's like, do you want to do this again? I was like, sure, why not? And internally, I was like, oh my God, like I just built this team. I spent all this time. I gave my heart. They are now top of the board. Now let's start again. Like, that sounds hard, but I loved it. I love that experience. So I did it again. I hired another mid-market team. And then that's where it became clear that was going to be my role. It's whenever we need to make something new, Eduardo's going to build that team. Of course, now that we're much larger, it's not just me, but at that time, we started to build the SMB team, which we never had. So companies under 100 employees. Now there's a team that I started after my second mid-market team. That team is now 3 teams in, 4 going to 4 this year. So I manage the teams, hire the managers, promote it from within, train the managers, etc. And now my new role is to manage the solutions engineering team, which is new, in quotation marks, because I've been doing this for 2.5 years or so. That's when we started the team. And the sales engineering team is essentially how do we support our enterprise initiatives. So obviously enterprise sales is very different. The reps that we hire are very different than an SMB rep. We also don't have enough time and at bats to get to the same level. So you need a different type of role for that sales cycle. So that's the next team that I've been doing. So in total, have managed 7 teams at Monday. So far, I'm building number 8 right now. And that's my role right now. So it's always been sales, managing salespeople, quota carrying, etc. But with a little bit of the engineering side, because I learned how to code when I had my startup. So it's always helped me be a little bit deeper in the tech side of things.
It's a really fascinating one, because I often talk about the importance of being adaptable, certainly within the tech ecosystem and in SaaS sales and beyond. And I think if I had to put someone's name next to the definition of adaptable, I think it's got to be you, Eduardo, because I mean you're consistently having to change, adapt, pivot, and you are a problem solver. And I think that's the message that I think is really important for people to lean in on, is that when you can be the person in any company that can see gaps, challenges, opportunities to fix something, opportunities to add tremendous value to a particular area, you build an incredible amount of internal value and stock for yourself. And you become someone that's just extremely credible, needed, and necessary for a business. And while we're in this climate where things are difficult, I think it's more important than ever that people continue to build their internal stock, so that they can be of extreme value to their companies and their employees, and just continue to empower people. So that's the aspect I love about the way that you've architected your career. Now, when I use that, please.
Not to stop you, but I've only been able to do this because my leadership has been able to empower me as well, right? So I wouldn't see myself doing something like this if Jameson and Yoni and even our CEOs were like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. I've never seen it before, but let's try it. Results obviously later on speak for themselves, but you also need to have guts as a leader to give people's strengths a platform.
Yeah, I'm glad you called that out, because it's an important one. So they say it takes two to tango, but I think for the listeners, I often talk a lot about just the concept of extreme ownership and focusing on what is within your sphere of control. And the bit that's within your sphere is creating an environment within yourself that puts you in a position where you're primed for opportunities. You're absolutely right, Eduardo, that calling out the leaders that are giving these opportunities is so important, but it starts with self. Right, you've got to put yourself in a position where you are that person. Make yourself undeniable, and then the world is your oyster. A few other things I want to touch on with you. One of them is really your driving factors, Eduardo, because again, we've spoken about you pivoting and taking on all of these different challenges. When you wake up first thing in the morning, what is it that's going through your mind that's making you get up and say, "Let's go do this thing again"?
Well, my daughter wakes me up every morning, so I have no shot to even think about it. But I have a 2-year-old, and she always wakes me up. No, but in to your point, what my favorite thing about my role right now, and I've tried to have the same even beforehand. When you start as a sales rep, you think about, I want to be top of the board, like I want to be the best, AE or AM in my company. Then when you're there, there's two options. You can want to keep doing that because it's a very great job. Actually, being an IC is amazing. I actually love the control of being your own. You dictate your own performance in a way. But once you become a manager, the first time I did it was I wanted to have the first team, the best team. But what wakes me up today, makes me excited, is how many other like superstars that have been on my teams I can make moving forward. I mean, the best example, of course, is, and I don't think that I made him a superstar. I think he was before. His name is Diego. He now manages one of our SMB teams. Top rep. That was amazing. Best rep ever, actually. We haven't had a rep as amazing as him. Like 200% to go. Unbelievable. He's great at everything at Monday. He became a manager. The first thing I told him was like, listen, like your job now is to make, if you can make 5 Diegos, like that's the game. So that was as a manager. Now I'm thinking, how do I make 5 Diegos now manager wise? And how can those 5 Diegos managers can make 5 Diegos reps? That's the multiplier. That's what makes me excited. So, and in a way, like that's not purely in my control either, right? So I get to have a say hiring. I get to have a say training them. But there's a lot of other things that you need to try to help out. You need to help out your other managers, so the culture has a lot of transparency and a lot of passion for what we're doing. You need to try to encourage above you to have the right tool set, to have the right culture, etc. Like it's a more complex thing to tackle, but that's what makes me excited, because it's a lot of little problems that need to be solved to make it happen. That's what I love right now. And when you see that, it's amazing, you know.
Yes.
But anyway,
the growth and it's almost like you start to see all of the pieces of the puzzle coming together, and it creates a masterpiece over time. When you start to then look ahead, Eduardo, and whether you want to talk about this through a personal lens, a professional lens, take it as you will. I'd love to know kind of what you feel you're working towards in your own mind, right? Do you see the concept of an end state in what you're trying to achieve in some capacity, or is this really just continuing to take a step forward every single day and being open to where this journey eventually leads you?
Yeah. I mean, I think right now in my career, my role is about empire building. Like I've seen Monday going from 1 to 10, right? It's been amazing. Now we are at that period where we're a public company where we're looking to go from 10 to 100. And I'm not talking about ARR, I'm talking figuratively. You can see our numbers, they're public now. But I've seen Monday go from, 20 million in ARR to where we are right now, which is, last public number I think we had is about 450 million ARR. It's insane. The growth has been crazy. But what excites me right now is to get us to $1 billion. And once we get to $1 billion, like, we're a different company and we'll have new challenges ahead. So I'm still in a space right now, career-wise, that I like the empire building side of things. Like, I want to see Monday through being a household name, not only where we are, which we are already, but across the world. Like that's what makes it interesting for me right now. I can tell you last month I went to Tel Aviv for a leadership offsite. There's nothing more crazy than seeing Monday's tower. We have their logo on top of the tower. You can see it from most of Tel Aviv. That's crazy, like, to me. Because when the first time I went, like, we were a tiny office somewhere, and we had a tiny office here in New York. So that is still a driving passion for me. Now in the future, I'm sure I'll take an operator role again. At some point there's only so many things you can do, and probably I'll pick one. But yeah, for now, like, that's my number one driving factor. And I would say that's a 5-year journey at least to see it through.
Can't wait to see the story unfold, Eduardo. On that note, I've got one final question for you. And that is really, if you were talking to that person out there, Eduardo, who wants to go from good to elite level in their career, what would your best piece or pieces of advice be for that person?
Sure. I think I'll give you one tactical and one, like, high level. I think the tactical, we touched about it a little bit before. I think preparation is something that a good rep, you notice that, and I'll backtrack a little bit. Me as a rep at the beginning, I thought that I could just wing it. I feel I'm smart. I know the product well. I can just wing everything. But then you start realizing that at some point, all your demos sound the same. And that's because you're organically creating a methodology. Now, if I were to do it again, I would make the methodology and iterate on the methodology and be methodical about it, So that would be the one thing, is that you need to have always a methodology about whatever you're doing. Kind of like putting an engineer's hat on. If you're amazing at it, you want to know what the objectives are going to be. You don't want to go in and not know what the objectives are going to be. And for that, you need a very standard methodology would be, having enough preparation for every single call, having enough time to be able to create your list, having enough time and in a process to run your demos, and having a process to do your follow-ups. That would be like the skeleton of everything you need to do. Obviously, it's different depending on the company, but I know for a fact top reps here at Monday and everybody I've seen have had a methodology, and the more methodical you are about your sales process, the better. So that's a tactical one. If you want to be a lead, like, there's no other way. Like, you need to know exactly what's going to happen when you're on a call. And the second one is more high level. Don't forget that you have a network. like there is a network of colleagues that you're working with today. These are the people that are going to take you to the next level and next, not only the next job, so the next opportunities in general. Being conscious about, who you're working with and making sure you take care of them as well as you like them to take care of you. It goes a very long way. I can't tell you how many people I've brought to Monday because they were amazing at a company before, knowing that the sales is not the same, but I knew that they had the grit. I knew they could figure it out, and I got to know them, and they got to help me when I needed them, and I got to help them when they needed. So don't stop building that area. The network, it doesn't have to be like, hey, I need to go to mixers to meet with people. It can be as simple as, the people are currently at your job. Like if they think of you as somebody that's trustworthy and can make things happen, they'll put the word out. Everybody knows each other in tech sales in New York. Same thing in San Francisco. I'm assuming it's the same thing in the UK. Think word goes out. So keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Mic drop moment right there, Eduardo. So appreciate you sharing your wisdom. What's the best way for people to find you Monday and get in touch if they're interested?
Sure. Monday.com. There's a automatic trial that you can do with a big blue button in the middle of the website that says get started. It's a 14-day trial. It gives you access to all of our features. If you do want to speak with anybody from our sales team, there's a little contact sales button. You get people just like me picking up and helping you with demos and structuring your boards at the beginning so you can test it out with real data and real workflows. If you want to reach out to me directly, my email is Eduardo@Monday. Super simple. And I'm happy to help with anything you need. And even if it's not myself alone, I'll have a team that can help out too. So, but I like to go on demos myself, as you can probably tell. I really like to speak about Monday. So, but anyway, feel free to contact me there.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that, Eduardo. Have you enjoyed the experience?
Yeah, man. Amazing. Thanks so much for having me, man.
Incredible, incredible. So to anyone who's been listening, if you're watching this on YouTube, first and foremost, please be sure to make sure you hit that like button, comment, share, and subscribe this episode. And again, if you're listening on any of the podcasting platforms, please be sure to take a couple of moments to leave us a 5-star review. Lastly, elitelevel.co, that's elitelevel.co for our newsletter. And as we've spoken about today, givemonday.com a trial. I've been using it for several weeks now, having a fantastic experience. So well worth you doing the same. Hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.